Well, there's the newsagents over the road, and the papers have just delivered. So we can go and take a look at the headlines the moment we get off the air this morning. This is Mirador Television, broadcasting out of Lewes in East Sussex in the United Kingdom. Those of you who are watching in the United Kingdom think, why on earth is he telling us that Lewes is in the United Kingdom? Because there is another famous Lewes in Delaware in the United States, and we often, even though we are almost twinned with the town, we're often mistaken for Lewes, Delaware. So if you're in the United States, this is not Lewes, Delaware, but we want you to stay with us anyway, and join us for this morning's rant. And if some of the stuff doesn't seem to make sense to you, don't worry. It'll come hitting home as the time goes by. I'm happy to say I'm not going to be drowned this morning. I don't have to struggle with an umbrella. Yesterday was a huge downpour. Apparently there was more rain fell yesterday than we've seen in years and years and years. It was almost record levels, and I was in the little town of Newhaven in East Sussex yesterday and got thoroughly drenched, thoroughly soaked. But luckily I was with a friend who filled me full of good wine at lunchtime. So on the way back, when I got soaked again, I didn't really notice. Hopefully without burning out any lenses and so on, I can perhaps show you that this morning we may well have a decent day to start with. There is, looking down Lewes High Street and towards the Downs, and the sun is beginning to peak over the top of the Downs. And for those of us, those of you who are Americans and you say, what the hell are the Downs? Well, they're hills in only the way that the English can. Is if we've got a hill, we call it a down. And so instead of going up the hill, you go up to the down. Anyway, enough of that, and let's talk about one or two serious things, because there are one or two serious things happening this morning. Yesterday there was a cabinet meeting of Lewes District Council. I've looked at our friends' sites, Mick Symes with Lewes present, and Lewes Eye, who are very, very good investigative reporters. And I don't see that anybody has been able to report on that meeting yet, because for much of it, the media and the public were excluded. And the exclusion was to do with the North Street development. What will come out of the minutes, I don't know. But let's see if the minutes appear today. Their efficiency is quite enormous. So maybe it's this time next year that these minutes appear. At the moment that they are, we'll take a look at them and we'll discuss them with a couple of experts, and then we'll get back to you perhaps tomorrow morning. We'll report on what's happening in that secret cabinet meeting. And I don't have to tell you I rant and rave about this secret cabinet meetings and the fact that we're run by about 4 people in a supposed democracy which has 23, 24, 25 plus councillors who seem to me are made irrelevant by the cabinet system. But anyway, enough of that, because there's something far more important, I think, at the national level happening, and that is that the BBC, as of next year, is going to scrap its free license for over 75s. Now, you know, I really do see this government and the establishment just struggling from disaster to disaster. Part of the reason that 75-year-olds get a free TV license is not because of economic reasons, but those who can't afford it are normally lonely people. They are trapped in their houses. They're trapped in their homes. Their family has gone. And television is their window on the world, as it should be. And it should be for all of us. So to scrap it is daft. Is simply stupid. And it's going to mean that we'll then start to find budgets will start to go up. People will wring their hands. All sorts of committees will be, what are we going to do about loneliness with the elderly? Well, you could start by not scrapping the television license, first of all. But you know, the thing is, the BBC, I'm sorry to say, I've worked for the BBC, so I know some of the inner workings. It's a daft organisation. It is totally out of touch with what goes on in reality? Totally. It's run by people who actually gaze into their own navels. So the BBC has no idea of what goes on outside its hallowed walls. None whatsoever. That doesn't mean to say it doesn't turn out quality programs. It does, but those are because of good individuals, not because of the corporate stance. The corporate BBC is in a mess, just the same as the government is in a mess. Now, this government it's got enough problems. It keeps coming bottom of the polls. It keeps saying it'll bounce back because people will, not go for some of the newer or stranger parties, or they won't go for Labour because of Mr Corbyn's leftist tendencies. He's committing suicide. All right, we're in trouble, chaps. What should we do? Let's pick on the elderly. The sign of a civilized society is said to be look after the lame, the sick, and the elderly. Now, the sick, we have a wonderful, wonderful system in the NHS. Yes, some people say it's a sacred cow and should be looked at. And indeed, I would agree that the administration can get silly and nonsensical, and the administration makes all sorts of stupid errors. But when it comes down to the doctors and the nurses who look after you, I have a consultant, I have a local surgery, I have the odd person who looks after me if I have to go to hospital for any other reason than the fact that I'm going to look after my Parkinson's. And I always get first-class attention from the medical staff, always. And my friends and colleagues report likewise. I mean, they like me are going to have the television license taken away from them. So they are frequent visitors to hospitals, to consultants, to surgeries. They have things go wrong with we have things go wrong with our bodies as we get older. But I have to say I have no criticism whatsoever of the NHS when it comes to its cutting edge. Those people who actually treat you. When I have problems with the bureaucracy, which seems to screw everything up, screw the BBC up. It's screwed almost any nationalised industry that we've got. It doesn't learn. But you would think that the politicians, whose very survival depends upon getting as much the grey vote as the young vote, would realise that that's slitting their throats if they take the license, the free license away. But it seems to be at the moment fait accompli. Let's see what the reaction is. The BBC needs to get into the reality of life. I personally will not now return to paying that license. Why? Because I've been used to having it for 5 years for free, and I've enjoyed it. But what I'm going to do is to stop watching the BBC. It's that simple. And if that's going to cut me off from information, it's not. I've now got dozens and dozens of ways of getting information, of watching various things. Yeah, that's a young chap looking at the BBC. No, it's not. He's looking at a television screen. What he can get on that television screen now is a huge, huge wide range of things and a huge variety. So I would suggest that the license should actually... There we go. The license, if they're going to collect anything, they better start collecting on television sets or on the gubbins, because it's quite easy not to watch BBC now. And the other thing that, of course, the BBC has been warned about for years and has happily ignored is it gets huge subsidies. I mean, the license fee is chunked in. There are other funds that it gets to do various things. And the fact is that it has relied upon those and never attempted whatsoever to come into the real world. Okay, we don't want advertising on BBC, many people will say. But that doesn't mean to say that you've got to do things in the most expensive way. If you have to cut your cloth to suit your income, then the BBC must do that. It's just carrying on as it is and then saying, well, we haven't got enough money. That's not good enough. The rest of us can't say that. Try telling the taxman that. Try telling the local councils that. Try telling anybody that. They don't want to know. On BBC, we don't want to know. Get on with it, provide a service, and stop being so stupid as to take away and contribute to the loneliness of the elderly. So the sick and the elderly, the lame, well, every society has lame ducks. Some of them we can help, some of them we can't. But I don't think that it's for want of trying that we try to look after the lame. The lame, the sick and the elderly, at this moment in time, we're a pretty civilized society. But why is it that all these people who are in charge try to erode that civilized for their own purposes? For political purposes. I am fed up with the politicians, as indeed I believe that most British people are. And actually, I was having a long discussion yesterday with a very, very intelligent man, and we were discussing, why is there a Trump? Why is there a Farage? Why is there a Le Pen? And of course, the present establishment just dismiss it. They just dismiss it and they say, oh, well, you know, they're populist, as if populist is some sort of swear word. The fact of the matter is the establishment at the moment is out of touch. People are demanding change. We live in a society which wants change. Maybe we stamp our feet and say we want change now, but we don't quite know what change we want. But that's beside the point. The fact is, why isn't the establishment understanding that this is protest? That Donald Trump is there, good, bad, or indifferent. And you know, a lot of Americans who still think that he's very good. So be careful how you stamp your feet and rate Trump according to English liberal values, because he could still be there for another 4 years and a power. So don't just think that it's an aberration. He's not. And perhaps if Donald Trump goes, somebody else will fill the gap. But certainly, looking at afar at the Republicans and the Democrats in the United States, they don't seem to have learned anything. The Conservatives and Labour here haven't learned anything. The Liberal Democrats never learn anything. Politics is up in the air. Politics is going to be different. And to make it parlous for your own government by cutting out a license fee seems to me to be arrant nonsense. And what do they think they're doing? What do they think they're doing? Well, perhaps what they're doing, and perhaps we should be thankful that this sort of thing is happening, is they're contributing to the fall of the old order. There is a new order on the way. Now, that would worry me if we were going to put the country in the hands of the millennials. But I was also discussing with this friend of mine yesterday the wonderful trust and confidence he's got in the development of his grandchildren. And I have to say that my grandchildren, too, are very sane, sensible people, making great contributions to society. They are a new breed, and that new breed are demanding new leadership. And that new leadership ain't evident at the moment, except from the fact that the Farages of this world, and I'm not one of his detractors, I know he's very popular, saying, nah, Farage. But when you actually ask people why, they drip out some of this sort of fake news stuff. He said this or he did that. It's really, if you're going to use that, by all means, kid yourself. But get to the bottom of some of these things. Don't just make a charge because you heard once that he did it or they did it or whatever. Because actually, it's very easy then to make sure that what you can do is to condemn just about every politician who came down the pike. We want change. Farage may not be the answer. Trump may not be the answer. Like going back to the establishment is no answer at all. And tomorrow we'll look at the local government scene again, because I have been wondering overnight why it is that they are so anxious, the local government so anxious to do so much behind closed doors, to have the cabinet system, which nobody can fathom because they don't have to tell anybody anything. There's no scrutiny of them. Is maybe it's not because they're doing things which they don't want other people to know about. Maybe it's because they don't know what they're doing, and they don't want us to know that they don't know what they're doing. And there are plenty of examples of that, and I'll give you several tomorrow. This council is a disaster, or at least let's put it this way. Lewes District Council, as it's constituted, is a disaster, and there are no signs that this new group that we've just voted in are going to be any different. So they're going to have me on their tail, they have Lewis I on their tail, they have Mick Symes on their tail, but all sorts of other people too, because we are all simply fed up with the way that things are done, and we want change. Not a bad rant this morning. Talk to you tomorrow. Till then, Keith Hayes with Mirador Television from Lewes, East Sussex, saying toodle pip.